Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this December special council meeting of 2021 to order. My name is Sandra Easton, Mayor of the Town of Lincoln and Chair of today's special council meeting. We're meeting electronically through Zoom during this declared emergency period. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast at our YouTube channel. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Attawandarong, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Madam Clerk, would you please complete a roll call to establish that we have quorum?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Russell.
Here.
Councillor Rajima.
Here.
Councillor Pachariva.
Here.
Councillor Brunet.
Here.
Councillor McPherson.
Here.
Councillor Miklick.
Here.
Councillor Reimer.
Here.
Councillor Timmers.
Here.
And Mayor Easton.
Present.
And that's quorum.
Madam Clerk, I want to take a moment now to welcome the senior members of staff who are joining us today electronically. Chief Administrative Officer Michael Kirkopoulos, Associate Director of Finance and Administration Terry Trowalla, Director of Community Services Shannon Mackay, Associate Director of Recreation and Culture Sarah Ain, Fire Chief Greg Hudson, Director of Economic Development and Communications Paul D. Yannon, Director of Planning and Development Matt Bruder, Director of Public Works Dave Graham, Associate Director of Public Works Jillian Harris, Legislative Committee Coordinator Deanna Phillips. IT support, of course, is here to guide us and keep an eye on how well things are working technically. Moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our Director of Legislative Services and Town Clerk Julie Kirkopoulos. And also joining us this evening, Regional Councillor Foster from Niagara Region, and the Town of Lincoln's Integrity Commissioners, Jeffrey Abrams and Janice Atwood-Petkovsky of Principals Integrity, who will be providing their annual report. As this is a virtual meeting, I will ask that we follow some procedures during this electronic meeting. If there is a connection or a service disruption for the chair, or a quorum is lost, the chair and or clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect and to regain quorum. If quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. If connection is lost from the chair, Deputy Mayor Adam Russell or the Vice Chair will resume the meeting. I'm sorry, as I should have said, as I'll move on. This is just for all meetings, and I just need to leave that piece out. Once reconnection is achieved, the chair will assume their role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, press the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list today and then invite you to speak when I open for comments or questions. When I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover and seconder, the clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourselves off mute during this portion of the meeting so you can confirm if you are in support or opposed. And when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. Do members have a declared interest? I see nothing, see no one, Madam Clerk. We'll move on then. Do members have any announcements? And please remember you have a limit of 3 items. I see nothing, Madam Clerk.
See nothing.
Item number 6 is proclamations. We have no proclamations this evening. However, we'll move on now to recognition and achievements, and I'm very pleased that we're able to do this on this last meeting of 2021. The item is to recognize our 2021 retirees with the town of Lincoln. This expression of appreciation and gratitude is to celebrate the staff for all of their hard work at the town of Lincoln. On behalf of council, we wish each one of you well on this exciting and new journey. And as I read the names aloud, I will also highlight years of service with the town. Jerry Bellitt, 13 years of service. Jerry Belfontaine, over 23 years of service. Ron Donia, 32 years of service. Chuck Judson, over 11 years of service at the town. Kevin Coppers, over 34 years of service. Cal Loney, over 32 years of service. Jerry McLaughlin, with just over 1 year of service. John San, over 23 years of service, and Tom Wood, with 16 years of service at the town. Congratulations to all of you. I know retirement will offer new and fruitful opportunities. I think we've all noticed that some of you have already taken up some new adventures. But it is this time now to recognize you for the hard work that you've done, for your dedication, for your loyalty, and for all those days, evenings, and nights that you've spent maybe in a little cold or a little heat, all on everyone's behalf in this town. Thank you very much on behalf of council. Next, we have the award recipients for the Customer Service and Spirit Award, and the CAO's Award of Excellence will be presented by CAO Mike Papoulis, who will introduce each staff member. Go ahead, CAO.
And through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just make a couple of comments about our retirees, and I see both Kevin and Chuck here, and I'll probably repeat a little bit of the comments I made last week. We had a little bit of a retirement lunch last week, and I spoke about each of our retirees and my experiences with each of them. Some more than others. Some as I do what I often called kind of pre-pandemic, my day in the life, where they took me out and we dug a cemetery plot or we did other things. But the two that are on our call tonight, Chuck and Kevin, two individuals that I spent a lot of time getting to know early on in my tenure. Chuck, when I got here, was sitting around the senior leadership team for a number of months, and I think to this day, occasionally if I'm in early, Chuck comes here and we have a little bit of a powwow and we kind of talk and share some stories about our children and some concerns maybe along the way. And Chuck, I always compare it to everybody's dad, everybody's granddad, one of these amazing individuals that is incredibly kind, incredibly generous of himself and of his time. And so I wish him nothing but the best in terms of his health, his happiness, and taking care of his daughters as they move on to the next chapter. And of course, Mr. Kevin Coppers, our union representative. A lot of people would describe Kevin in a lot of different ways, and I won't go into those. Some of them probably, are not for the camera. But Kevin was one of those individuals who I instantly respected. He was a straight shooter, had been with the organization a very long time, with the community. Rose to be one of the VPs on our CUPE across Niagara region. And as such, didn't just look at things from a Lincoln perspective, but also looked at things from a broader Niagara perspective. And although we were on opposite sides of a number of negotiations, whether they be collective agreements or otherwise, he was always fair, always great to deal with. And I can assure you that his experience, his demeanor, his approach to things will be missed. So, to Kevin, to Chuck, who are here tonight, thank you for your years of service, for your service to the community. Public service is a calling. I truly believe that, but it's a bit of a thankless job. And I think we know that when we hear from residents at times. But I think for me, on behalf of our entire leadership team, and I know I speak for council when I say I wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for the service that you've provided to our community. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
So now moving on, Your Worship, to our two corporate awards of excellence. And I will start with our customer service and spirit nomination. And I think this person doesn't really need an introduction. For those of you that have been at town hall, you know Kimberly. Kim, you've got your camera off. Hopefully you can turn it on, or at least the volume on, and you can hear me. But Kim is that face that we all see when we walk into town hall. And I'm going to read a little bit of what the individuals that nominated her said about her, and I think I couldn't have put it better. So the tremendous value that Kim brings to the town is in helping residents, businesses, and visitors get to the people, services, and information that they need, both efficiently and effectively. She often serves as that first point of contact for residents and others with the town, and in a big way represents both the face and voice of our organization, and continues to do so with considerable kindness, respect, professionalism, and really plays an integral role in the fabric of our community and in complete alignment with our vision to be a place to grow, prosper, and belong. That was one. And I haven't read it all, Kim, or else I'd go on for probably the next 15 minutes. And I know you're humble and you don't want to hear all of this, but another one goes on to say, Kim brings a level of care, compassion, and customer service to the role. She's never afraid to deal with difficult situations and always does so with a smile and immense politeness. We've all witnessed firsthand her calm demeanor, her positive attitude as the first point of contact by phone and visitors coming to town hall. I can vouch for all of that. Kim and I also share a passion for hot sauce together. A little bit of a challenge at times. She thinks she can, out hot sauce me. I think I proved her wrong, but maybe that's open for interpretation. But in all seriousness, Kim is phenomenal at what she does. We hear nothing but positive comments about her. She is calm under pressure. Oftentimes, I think dealing with the most difficult of situations, and we are incredibly fortunate to have Kim. So congratulations on the customer service and spirit nomination, Kim.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Kim. On behalf of council, we know how important your role is, and it certainly is one that strikes to the heart of what our community is looking for every day and with every encounter at the town hall. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And our next award is the CAO's Award of Excellence. And this is given to an employee or team that really demonstrates qualities of excellence during the year in terms of bringing things to fruition. And this this award goes to the Lincoln Museum and Cultural Center team. So Jessica Wilson, Jasmine Pertot, Beth Labrie, Olivia Rosima, and Stephanie Bellissimo. Congratulations to all of you. Similarly, I'm going to read a little bit about what people said about you. So your first nominator. Each bring their own specialization related to the museum, to arts, to culture and heritage, and you have collectively advanced all operations of the new museum while fostering important relationships with both community stakeholders and esteemed industry colleagues and experts. You're all effective communicators, and through effective communications, the development of new tools and resources, and a combination of productive collaboration and of course fun. And you're all looking like you want to smile and really, laugh. And I think that's a testament to all of you together as a team. You do have a lot of fun. The team was established and has established foundational imperatives that will continue to ensure our museum is not only sustainable, but thrives. I would also say that it rivals any museum, large or small, anywhere in the GTHA. And I think I can say that, and I'm sticking with that. From expanding program offerings to securing additional revenue from various sources, the team has invigorated the new Museum and Cultural Center through innovation, creativity, and customer service excellence. Another comment, and this comes, and again, I'm only going to read an excerpt from two members of the committee, Pauline and Terry, and what they say, I think, really, again, is a testament to who all of you are as a team. This highly skilled team has worked collaboratively to meet each new challenge with expertise, professionalism, and enthusiasm. You are all diverse individuals with talents that complement and enhance the skill set of the entire team. Team members not only demonstrate respect for each other and their roles, they appear to genuinely enjoy working together, and their enthusiasm is contagious. By taking every opportunity to reach out to the community, this team and these team members have established and maintained meaningful work relationships with residents in the business community. And so I'm not sure what other comments I could make, but that's a true testament to, again, anything we do in public service. When the community thinks we're doing a good job, when they think they're engaged, and when the fun that you all have really, is very obvious on your face. I want to thank you all. I think I've mentioned every name here. I just got an email from someone watching, said, did you mention Beth? Beth, I did mention your name, but I'll mention it again for that individual who's watching. So there are people watching tonight. You all do phenomenal work. I love coming to the museum and seeing the excitement that you all have. Everyone always asks me, how are we going to keep this team together? And that's, I think, a challenge that we have collectively as leaders. But I always say it's about giving you some autonomy, letting you do phenomenal work like you all do, and hopefully keeping you together as long as possible, because you guys are truly a dynamic, amazing team. Kim, that goes for you. Huge kudos to the entire community services team. All of you, I think by now have your awards and certificates. I know I was here when Stephanie got hers at Town Hall, and she kind of giggled, screamed, cried. So a combination of emotions. Similarly, Kim, we took some photos. So my thanks to all of you. I don't know if anyone has anything to say. We don't often get these times, especially over the last 2 years, to, I think, honor and recognize staff. So my thanks to all of you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Well, you're a good number of you are up there. If anyone has anything they would like to say, just raise your hand. The clerk and I'll source you out.
This is the group that's not shy, but tonight they're a bit shy.
Well, on behalf of council, we certainly, I'll add our comments as well. We certainly are bringing a great deal to be delivered on the museum, along with the leadership of Shannon Mackay. We're certainly doing and meeting all expectations. I see Jessica has her hand up. Go ahead, Jessica.
Sure, I echo your sentiments, Mayor Easton. Both Sarah Ain and Shannon McKay have been absolutely wonderful leaders, and a lot of the success that we've seen within the museum team and at the museum is really in large part due to their leadership, and then obviously the leadership of council and our CAO as well. So I really wanted to say thanks to, in particular, Sarah and Shannon.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Thank you all. You're very deserving. The expectations are tremendously high, and everything you do is public facing, no question about it. So you've made a lot of people very happy in a very short period of time, and I'm sure that this will just continue on as the days go by. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Mr. CAO, for bringing these names forward. I agree with you. It is very important that we applaud members of staff who do outstanding work. Thank you very much. Council, we're now moving to item number 8, and we're considering items 8.1, the special council minutes of December the 6th, 2021. Do members of council have any questions? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer and seconded by Councillor Timmers that council approve the minutes of the following meetings of council. Special council minutes of December 6th, 2021. Madam Clerk, would you please call it the vote?
Thank you, Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Miklik,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor and Deputy Mayor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Yes,
that carries.
thank you very much. Item number 9 is delegations, and we have, there are no delegations this evening. Number 10, presentations, brings us Janice Atwood-Petkovsky and Jeffrey Abrams, Principals Integrity, regarding the Integrity Commissioner's annual report. Janice and Jeffrey, please go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I think they're just getting connected there. One moment. Janice and Jeffrey, can you hear us?
I can. Janice is just coming online, I believe.
Okay. Jeff, the report has been included in the agenda, so I'm not sure if you have another presentation to share with council, but rather than just speak to the report.
I'm sorry, I was just communicating with Janice to make sure she was coming online. The report has been shared. We don't have any PowerPoint presentation. We are just going to
Perfect.
speak to the report. If she doesn't come on in a second, I'll
I see her. I see Janice.
already.
I'm here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Can you see me?
Yes, yes, hello, Janice.
Good.
Welcome.
Hello. Good evening.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Well,
All
we
the-
were just commenting on the fact that your report had been shared, and Jeffrey doesn't have any comments. How about you, Janice? Did you have anything that you wanted to say, or 'cause otherwise we'll just open for questions?
I do have just a few comments. Normally we make just a few brief overview comments. So thank you for having us here this evening. We are your Integrity Commissioner, and you see Jeff on the other square. It's like Hollywood squares here. So this is our annual report. It covers really the last year or so, a little beyond that. And we use this as an opportunity just to remind the public of the role of the Integrity Commissioner for municipalities, which really we like to put the emphasis on the advice giving, the education and training, and the opportunity for members of council and local boards to seek confidential advice from us to avoid issues. And of course, we are the complaint mechanism, if you will, for resolving or investigating complaints when they do come to us. We always have an eye to trying to resolve matters if they can be resolved short of a full investigation and a report to council. We like to think of ourselves really as coaches and teachers rather than the sheriff or the cop. But of course, that there always is that residual power at the end that if something needs to be investigated, we're here for that as well, obviously. We think this is a pretty good news story for Lincoln. I won't go through tooth and nail the details of the report. We'll just talk a little about the activity that we've worked on for you over the past year and a bit. In March of this past year, we had the opportunity to attend virtually to talk to council about the consultation that the province was conducting. That's reflected under this report where we speak of policy development in education. So that really fits into policy development. You'll recall we attended the council just to speak briefly about the kind of work that the province was looking at and what we really suggested in terms of how, if the province moves forward with its consultation, where it might strengthen the framework. Another category of area that we serve you in is advice giving. And that advice for members of council and members of local board is always confidential advice, and it's binding advice. We provide the advice in writing, and council members, therefore, if they provide us the facts and follow the advice, are protected against any complaint that may come forward on those facts, so long as they've followed the advice. So really, that's a huge benefit to members of council to have that opportunity to obtain the advice of the Integrity Commissioner around issues that they may have concerns about or that they feel somebody may raise. And so the final area that we provide service to in is in terms of responding to complaints that come to us. And in the course of the past year plus covered by this report, we've only received one inquiry, which following a discussion with the complainant regarding the facts and explaining the process involved, was never formally submitted as a formal complaint. So we think that the report really reflects very well on council in terms of council navigating its ethical challenges when they arise in a very competent way and staying out of trouble. So those are, I think, good news stories. We talk in our report a little about some of the themes that we see around the province, because we serve as Integrity Commissioner for a large number of municipalities around the province, as well as a couple of other public bodies. And so some of the things we see around the province, we've included in the last couple of pages of this report. They're not reflective of what we see going on in Lincoln at all. We're just sharing with you some of the bits of wisdom that we have gleaned from our vantage point, watching other municipalities and working with other municipalities. So one area that arises fairly frequently is in other municipalities is when members are disparaging of each other or of staff or members of the public. And so we say, you know, it's important to maintain those respectful interactions. Of course, one can be passionate, but it's really important to maintain a respectful and civilized level of conversation and decorum. Another area that arises frequently everywhere are questions around conflicts of interest and how to avoid conflicts of interest. And so that's a pretty prevalent theme throughout municipalities, where members identify issues and need a little help just to understand how to deal with matters. About a year ago, the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry concluded, and a really voluminous report was issued by Associate Chief Frank Morocco. And one of the takeaways from that, we pointed out in our report to you, is that members of council sometimes haven't well understood that they are obligated to recognize conflicts of interest, even when those may be conflicts of interest that are not specifically enumerated under the very narrow definition of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. And so we have done a bit of work around that, and a number of codes of conduct reflect that. And actually, the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry identified and approved of the language and the definitions that we have put into codes of conduct, speaking of disqualifying interests. And so we mentioned that in this report. We are working with your clerk to propose provisions that can be amended into the procedural bylaw in the new year. So it's something that your clerk has well in hand, and we're working to support that, to bring that forward. And there'll be a provision amended into the code of conduct as well for council to consider. So those are things, just sort of keeping them, I guess, au courant, keeping them updated with where the province and where these different bodies think they ought to be. One area that comes up from time to time is members sort of getting into administrative matters. And we have a little paragraph on that in this report where we say, you know, it's important to stay in your lane. Members of council may sometimes feel the urge to take the reins to fix a constituent's problem. And it's sometimes a difficult role for a member to know where the handoff ought to be, but there is an important handoff. It's important that members of council, even though they represent constituents, they are not there to jump in and do staff's job for them. And there's good reasons why they should avoid doing that. So it's certainly not something that we've observed in Lincoln, but we just mention it, something that arises from time to time. And finally, we see from time to time, and I think it's become a little more prevalent the past couple of years through the pandemic, where there's tremendous activity on social media, and members of council who may be very active on social media occasionally get into trouble when they arbitrarily block others who may be engaging with them in what really constitutes a sort of a town square discussion around issues. It's just important for members of council, when they do engage actively in social media, to understand that although they certainly have some obligation to regulate if there's offensive posts being added on, and they have some obligation to curate some of that off of there, they also cannot simply arbitrarily remove voices of disagreement. So it's just a little bit of a nuanced thing that's happening much more now with social media being such a ubiquitous tool to engage with one's community. So we do recommend that council consider adopting some kind of policy around social media, and we're certainly prepared to assist on anything that might be of use there. Otherwise, I think we're all still waiting to see what the province may do in terms of the consultation that it ran last spring. I think the last we read about a week ago in the newspaper was that there's a bill that may come forward sometime in the late winter. So I think, you know, we think that this report reflects very well on council and its activities, certainly from the ethical perspective and from our perspective as your integrity commissioner. And we're open to any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you very much, Janice. I'm just going to turn to Jeffrey in the, just in case there was something that he also wanted to add. Jeffrey?
I appreciate that, Mayor. I know Janice and I are a true partnership, and we share the division of labor, and it was Janice's turn to deliver tonight, but I am available to assist with any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. All right, Madam Clerk, we'll open the floor then to questions from council.
First up, we have Councillor Miklick, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Through you to Jeffrey and Janice, thank you for coming and your report. Just curious, we're going into an election year. It should be interesting, you know, across all municipalities with regards to not recommending blocking people. How do you determine if a person is a person and not just using an alias? Is it advisable to block aliases or people misrepresenting themselves, pretending to be somebody that they're not, you know, to make their point, because in cloak?
Maybe I'll field that first, because I haven't spoken yet this evening. To be clear, the policy we're recommending, we recommend that you include in your policy. We recommend you have a policy, so it's a consideration that you can give to how you deal with others in social media. But we were speaking specifically to this condition. A member of council has an open social media site, and on that, and the discourse that happens in the open social media site comes to pass that the member thinks that somebody ought to be blocked. And what we're saying is, please don't be arbitrary about that. So if you're going to block someone, tell them. If you're going to block someone, have a good reason for it and advise them of that. And that's really the limit of what we spoke to tonight. We are recommending, though, that councils give consideration to social media policy. There's much more activity on social media than ever was the case, and it's worthy of consideration. So speaking directly to your question about aliases, I don't think it really matters from our perspective. It would be a function of whether that alias, that person, that entity was conducting themselves in a way that was deserving of being blocked. And in that case, we would ask that you not be arbitrary, that you advise them of why, the length of time, that sort of thing, and be done with it.
Councillor Mikulik, does that help you?
Yeah, it does a little bit. I just appreciate that response. I just worry that when people are using an alias, they're going to be stronger with their opinion than they normally or typically would be if they were using their true identity. And I'm not sure who would be the referee or who would determine that an individual operating with an alias would be offside in their comments. How is there a third party that we can consult with to?
Well, I guess you can always consult. You can always consult with us. I guess the situation would be you're about to block somebody because of certain behavior you've observed on your site, and you think it might be in a gray area. You think you might want somebody just you want to bounce off your conclusions with someone. We are available to advise you. One of the problems with internet communications, as you know, I mean, with social media communications, is that there is no one referee or arbiter of those exchanges. That's why it can be problematic. But certainly with respect to your behavior, on the question of whether or not it complies with any policy you might adopt or the code of conduct, we are absolutely in place to give you advice. And if you follow the advice, as Janice mentioned, you're bulletproof from any criticism that might follow.
I mean, can I just sort of add to that, if I may? One of the ways that these matters come to our attention is when individual constituents in different municipalities where we serve reach out to us and say, Councillor so-and-so blocked me. And our first question is going to be, well, have you reached out to them to ask them why? So that's why we say, as a starting point, if a councillor wants to block somebody and they have a reason, because we have said, in previous years, when social media was a little less prevalent, we said to councillors who engage in social media, be aware that you don't want to be somebody who's proliferating ugly, offensive comments that somebody else gloms on or throws on to your social media. So there's a bit of an obligation there to at least curate it. Maybe it's every few days you go in and make sure there isn't something really horrible there. But at the same time, if somebody is arbitrarily blocked, so if somebody says to us, Councillor so-and-so blocked me because I disagreed with this particular issue. They were talking about this, everybody was joining in, and I got blocked. So our starting point will be, have you asked them why? We obviously don't have any, ability to regulate somebody else's conduct or behavior, but if a council member says, I blocked them because they were being really offensive, then clearly that's not going to be a problem. But if, in the end, it turns out that the council member blocked them simply because they were annoying the council member because they were disagreeing with the position, then that's what we would think of as arbitrarily blocking.
Appreciate that. It's just especially that the past 2 years, folks have been they're pretty worn out, and they're taking a lot out on social media, and I just want to make sure that we kind of have an idea how to navigate through that, when the time comes. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. Madam Clerk, I understand that Counselor Foster has also has some input. He wishes to have some input on this specific question. Is that correct?
Just on the report in general. So
I'll wait, Madam Clerk. Counselor Foster, I'll have the counselors enter first, and then I'll ensure that I include you at the end of their questions. Thank you very much. Moving on now to Counselor Timmers.
Thank you, Mary Easton. Through to our presenters, Jeffrey and Janice. Thank you for being here tonight. I had some questions around the same thoughts as Councillor Mikulik. Is the part that I find a little a gray area is you have a councillor Facebook page, and then you have your personal Facebook page. And is this report saying that we aren't able to block someone on our personal Facebook page because we are a councillor?
What we're recommending is that you develop a policy to speak to broad issue of social media. There may be circumstances where it would be inappropriate for you to block somebody on your personal page. I don't know. The question becomes is, are you using your personal page for council business? So the way we characterize the situation is, and it's usually the case, that a member of council, an elected official, has an open Facebook site. They have a blend of personal and council business on it. And it's not a protection for the member to say, well, hey, wait a second, this open site in which I dally with both personal and council business is actually a personal site, and it's somehow exempt from the scrutiny of the integrity commissioner vis-a-vis the code of conduct. So really, we cherish the opportunity to advise members of council, to educate members of council, to share our experiences from across the province. And so what we're saying tonight is this is a preventative thing. If you have an open site and you wish to block someone, have a good reason for it and tell them, explain why. We can get into the nitty-gritty of what happens in this circumstance, that circumstance. Obviously, if a complaint were to be generated, we'd have to look at the entire situation. But better to prevent the problem from arising, and that's why we suggest it tonight.
Well, I think it's really good to have this discussion so that we are aware and we're thinking that way. Just my 2 cents. If there is anyone that's being truly offensive, you need to screenshot it. Screenshot everything that they say and keep it. That's my little piece of advice.
And date it if you would. I just from experience, we often get screenshots and we can't tell sequencing and that sort of thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I don't see any other hands.
No, so we would need to do what we similarly have done in the past. So a show of hands to allow an unregistered delegation, which is Regional Councillor Foster, to speak to this item. If we could just show those hands and then we can, and that carries. Thank you. Councillor Foster, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And to Jeffrey and Janice, a great report for the town of Lincoln. And Janice, I remember correctly back, you were very strong back when I was on council when we were starting to have discussions in this whole area too. So this is I read the report and I thought this is terrific. I think every member of this council can be very proud of what it is that they've done as a council. Sandra and I, or Mary Easton and I, sit on the region of Niagara, and of course it's not quite the same environment going on there. And I would suggest to you that your report would be like about 15 pages longer had you been the integrity commissioners that were going on there. The one thing that keeps coming up over and over again with integrity commissioners and what councillors do with it is there's an awful lot of weaponization. I will refer to it as integrity commissioners. Have you guys had to deal with anything like that? And if so, what's your policy? What is it that you try to do to downgrade that between counselors in a particular situation?
Well, thank you for the question. It's an excellent and perceptive question. We are under the statute, and we certainly carry ourselves this way. We are independent statutory officers, and that independence is important. That independence is important because individuals will complain to us about the behavior of counselors, whether the complainant is a member of council or a member of the public or otherwise. And we consider it an important function for us to give consideration to that complaint, determine whether it's frivolous, vexatious, real, not a minimal complaint, just as a minimal, somebody said something mean to me sort of thing, versus an issue that is important for the public interest for it to be pursued. Because we know there is a significant cost to integrity commissioner complaints, and that's not just in money, it's in reputation too, time, reputation. And we have an approach which will focus on seeking opportunities to resolve a complaint when it comes in, rather than proceed to a full investigation. But when we do consider it necessary to conduct a full investigation, we focus on the salient issues and craft a report which is abundantly fair to, in our view, to the respondent. The respondents had full opportunity to participate along the way. But it seeks to resolve, to offer recommendations, remedial recommendations to fix the thing that was complained of. And our focus is we have a solutions orientation. And so even if that report might recommend sanctions, we'll be speaking to, ways to fix it. And that's why at the outset, Janice referred to us as coaches and teachers. I mean, a teacher cares about the progress of their student, even if the student is misbehaving. That detention is meant as a bit of deterrent. When the coach makes you run a lap, it's in order to produce a better athlete. And we consider ourselves more like that than somebody, the cop or the sheriff, or somebody who's looking at a codified set of rules and making judgments as to whether or not somebody has put a toenail over an ethical line. So our approach is remedial. We deal with complaints as they come. We recognize that sometimes people are attempting to take a shot at someone through by weaponizing a code of conduct. Our awareness is actually focused by the way we triage the complaints and seek to find a solution out of whatever the situation might be.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And one last quick question through you, Mary Easton. There's been some thought processes going on across the province that when people bring forward integrity commissioner complaints, that the person should be responsible for costs if it turns out to be frivolous, etc. And I believe that certainly does not exist within any of the acts that are going on with things. But in your professional opinions, would such a move actually make sense?
In our view, if I may just, I'm going to jump ahead of Janice if she has thoughts on this. No, we don't support it. It's a bit of a barrier to those who seek to complain legitimately. If it's considered to prevent the vehicle necessary to prevent vexatious and frivolous complaints, well, our triage does that anyway. And I'll add to the answer this. It may be difficult to accept this answer, but we think it's to a counselor's advantage to have somebody available to have a complaint heard and dealt with, resolved, as opposed to individuals who think they have a grievance against a member of council and deal with it through the media, through social media, through other disparate ways. Well, at least we provide an accessible point of contact where somebody can say, look, I think this was wrong. And we have the opportunity through our triage process by resolving it to say, look, we hear you, you've got a hearing, we understand it, but this is how municipalities operate. This is actually the limit of the councillor's authority. This isn't a disqualifying interest. You know, we can give a person an answer, and that in many circumstances fully resolves it, and they go away actually by saying thank you, I didn't know, and that's the end of it. Not 100% of cases, but certainly the triage process serves a useful purpose, and I think a protective purpose, that being one of them.
Satisfactory, Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you very much, Mary Easton, and I appreciate council allowing me to ask those questions.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor Russell, would you just take the chair for a moment? I'm going to check first with the clerk to make sure that there are no other hands up. I'm not seeing anything, Madam Clerk.
No other hands, Madam Mayor.
Right, Deputy Mayor, would you please take the chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Madam Mayor.
I have a couple of questions as well, and I'll just let the two of you, decide who should answer. On the matter of frivolous and vexatious, I've always thought that it was a little bit subjective, possibly. So what I'm looking for is what is that triage criteria that you spoke to, Jeffrey, to remove the subjectivity that I'm feeling might be there?
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Janice.
Jump in.
We've been texting behind the scenes, and the text hasn't come through from Janice on that one, so I'll speak. Overarching the overarching test that we use is something called the reasonable person test. It's born out of Old English law, and it's actually an objective test. It's the one that is useful in determining whether or not you have a code of conduct that's outside of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. It's the one that is useful to determine, which side of the story is the one that should be given weight. And it really is, in simplified terms, goes like this: what would a reasonable person, fully apprised of the relevant facts and circumstances, decide about whatever the matter is at hand? So it's not a popularity test. It's not what most people would think. It's what would a reasonable person, reasonably fully aware of all the relevant facts and circumstances, what conclusion would they come to? And that gives us some discipline in determining whether or not something might be frivolous or vexatious or otherwise true or not true. Hope that answers the question satisfactorily. Janice, do you have something else?
I'm going to jump in just a little bit. I mean, frivolous and vexatious is a bit of a legal construct, and it arises, well, without sort of getting into all the detail, it's a legal construct where lawyers will say, well, that's frivolous and vexatious. Rarely would we deal with a matter and arrive at a determination that it's frivolous and vexatious. It may be something that doesn't warrant and is not in the public interest to have fully investigated. So our triage process really starts at a level where we look at, is this something that prima facie on the facts provided to us could constitute a breach of the code of conduct? So if it's not on the face of it something that could constitute a breach, it's not going to go through the next sort of the next step. Is it something that's strictly operational? In which case we would more likely be referring them back to the appropriate staff or back to the town or city to go through the administrative channel. We would then look at whether it's something, so it's within our jurisdiction, it's not operational, it's not a council decision that somebody disagrees with, because we have no jurisdiction over council decisions. It's a matter that is on the face of it, the code of conduct could have been breached based on the facts. Well, then the question is there a public interest in looking at this matter? It's a question of, is it as Jeff often says, is it just a toenail over the ethical line? So somebody looked sideways at me in a meeting and I'm upset about it. And those are the areas where I don't think we would call it frivolous and vexatious because that's a bit of a legal construct. I think we would say it's just not in the public interest to pursue. It's a matter that's perhaps we would say de minimis. It's of such a trivial nature that it doesn't warrant an investigation and a report. It may actually be something that we can resolve through a communication with the counselor by putting the constituent in touch with the counselor, or if it's two counselors, maybe we can arrange to have sort of a meeting of the minds so that people can not annoy each other if that's what's going on. Not everything can be resolved amicably, but many things can. We often talk about course correction. Is there an opportunity where we can have a council member understand better where they're going outside of the boundaries or where they're stepping out of the lane or crossing those lines? And maybe it can be resolved through some additional training or coaching. So those are always opportunities, but we rarely deal with the matter as if it's frivolous and vexatious, because even to the complainant, it may not feel frivolous and vexatious. It may indeed be an attempt to weaponize, but in somebody's mind, it's serious enough that it warranted communicating with us. So we would probably look at it, and if we determined that it really didn't warrant, it wasn't in the public interest to do an investigation and a report, we might still be able to do a little bit of coaching and course correction.
That's I think a very useful response. Thank you both for that. Deputy Mayor, I have a question on sanctions. Having had the unfortunate experience of having to set sanctions or to support sanctions as advised by the Integrity Commissioner, I found it very unnecessary for a council member to have to actually vote on sanctions against another member. We have set sanctions. I think most, that's part of all the integrity policies. And I'm looking really for those sanctions as they've been defined as part of our bylaw to be applied or assigned by the integrity commissioners. I know that that's not the practice, and I'd like to know why. Again, you've done the review, you have a great deal of detail about how deep some of the intentions are. When a complaint is very serious and requires sanctions, why not have the integrity commissioner assign them accordingly as on a priority basis, if you will, depending on the findings?
Well, let me answer the question this way, if I may, Mayor. The Integrity Commissioner has a broad set of functions. We've described them in the report. You'll see that with those arrows in the chart, they're all leading to an increase in public engagement. We work with you. It's a bit unusual for somebody who potentially has the opportunity to investigate a member is also there helping build the policy framework and providing education, giving the advice and trying to resolve matters. But that little bit of an odd arrangement where integrity commissioners have this broad range of responsibilities actually works when you consider it from the perspective of being a coach or a teacher, because it is all designed, we think, to encourage course correction. And if I could stretch that analogy a little bit further, the teacher can ask you to stay over school or something, but really the sanctions that you're referring to, the monetary sanctions, that's kind of like in a suspension that either the principal or somebody else has to impose, because there's a recommendation to that body to impose them. Now, I shouldn't be stretching those analogies too far, because you live in the real world where you're being asked as a member of an elected body to sit in judgment of a colleague, and that's a difficult thing to do. We find councils across the province sometimes struggling with that. It is a council's obligation to consider this report that's been produced with some effort, that's been produced with under the tenets of procedural fairness, and which makes a recommendation and should justify that recommendation. It is the obligation of council currently to hear it. We recognize that it is sometimes difficult. Now, in the consultations, Janice and I helped Miko prepare. We wrote our association submission into the consultations on codes of conduct. And what we recommended, I don't know if it'll be adopted, don't even know if it's been discussed. So we recommended there be a body that's larger than council. So it's think of the Conservation Authority, where you have a catchment area that's larger than the largest municipality within your collectivity. So larger than the region of Niagara, shared with others, on which would sit the councillors' peers, representatives from a variety of municipalities who could come together periodically to hear and consider the reports from whatever number of integrity commissioners happen to exist within that larger area. We think it's important that the final assessment be done by the respondents' peers, the elected officials that exist within the same environment, recognizing regrettably that it is sometimes difficult to do that. Now, there are other more technical answers having to do with levels of procedural fairness and this being an administrative process that should be easily accessible and rapid and whatnot. But that, I think, is it's a recognition of what the reality that underpins your question, and it offers a bit of a solution to assist members in that very difficult set of circumstances.
All right, well, that certainly provides me with more more considerations, and I appreciate that. It is certainly a very uncomfortable position. Mr. Chairman, I have a third question that I think is fairly general, and I think this is one that we all share on council, and I would appreciate your thoughts on it. Particularly at the present time, council is dealing with many development applications. And I'm sure you well understand the policies that exist that come from the province through the region and then to our own local policies. And often a staff report will recommend on the policy and speak to how the application meets the needs and the requirements of the policy. But our constituents have different views, and we certainly understand what those are and why they exist. There's no easy answer to this, I understand, but I'm really seeking for your advice. We can vote as we want, we understand that, but on your analysis of the situation where voting for or against could or could not have on a repetitive basis both considerable financial and legal costs. How does council address this when our first priority is to represent the public, but at the same time, our oath basically says that we should follow rules as they're laid out and we should support them as they're laid out. Can you help us with this?
Certainly. It's an interesting, I'm going to say thank you for that exam question. It's an excellent question. The role of council is really, I think you could consider what the true role of an elected official is and carve it into two. One is to represent your constituents, not be the agent of your constituents. Janice spoke to staying in your lane and that sort of thing, but being a conduit, the pipeline between the municipality and your constituents, a translator, that sort of thing. And the other is to be a steward of the municipal corporation, to deal properly with the finances and the personnel and the strategic objectives of the corporation. Some will come along and say, well, a municipal councillor is a fiduciary. They're always a fiduciary. They have to always act in the best interests of the corporation, forgetting that there is this representative capacity. And we in our training, we use a trite little example, which is, after you've approved your budget and decided what your parks budget should be, a new development springs up, and the people there reasonably say, hey, we should have a parquet with a swing set in it. And you're our counselor. Can you go and do what you can? Because staff are saying that their money's already spent. And you come back to council knowing that your budget is already allocated, that the corporate view would be that, well, they'll simply have to wait for next year, wait their turn. But it's not really an example of you not being a fiduciary to come to council and say, I think that my community should be supported by a new swing set. So it's one of those situations where various conflicting things can be true at the same time. I'm hoping I haven't lost track of the question.
You were avoiding it actually, but I'm going to give you another chance.
Yeah, thank you for that. Refocus me, if you will. So it's you hear from your constituents on planning matters. I'll say this: I've been working for municipalities my entire career. I started as a solicitor and then as a clerk, and as a solicitor, I was a committee solicitor. So I was there to help interpret and assist with procedures and whatnot. And I'm without word of a lie, this magical process that occurs through open deliberation, where members come into the room representing very different perspectives at the beginning of the meeting, and through this sometimes messy and inefficient process of making speeches and asking questions and presenting information, way more times than not, council comes up with a decent decision, whether it's a planning matter, whether it's a matter in which you have active constituents on both sides of the issue, or just your rudimentary administrative things. Councils generally, more often than not, from my perspective, do the right thing when presented with really difficult situations. So it's about, I think, what you do with the various inputs that come to your attention in the course of the discussion of the matter. And your constituents who might be for or oppose are a very powerful input. You may well have lobbyists, you have staff perspective, you have your own thoughts on the matter. There'll be research presented to you. Your task as an elected official is to juggle that stuff a little bit and decide what the best outcome would be. It may not be a perfect outcome, but to decide what in your mind is the best outcome. So I don't know if that's a direct answer to the question, but I think it helps to look at those questions from that perspective. How do I find my path to the best solution? What are my colleagues saying about it? What are my constituents saying about it? And having weighed all of that, what in my core do I believe to be the best option available to me in terms of voting?
Well, I'll tell you what I've taken from your comment is that good decisions can be made when you have a variety of the best information, and that's going to come from a lot of people. And there's never going to be a black and white answer, but I won't press you further on it. I think I'm getting a general idea of where you think we should be going. Thank you very much, and thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Back to you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor.
Well, I don't think there's any other people looking to make comments, and but I'd like to make a comment as the head of council, and it is that I believe that one of the reasons that this report sits as it does tonight is because we do have reasonable people that sit around the table. One of the greatest changes that's occurred in council in the last 4 years is that we don't worry so much anymore about being right all the time and agreeing. I guess that's it. We don't worry so much about agreeing. And we're learning slowly but surely how to express conflicting views and not and not damage relationships unnecessarily. I think that there's a lot of ego checking at the door, which is so important. And I'm very pleased. I think that your report does truly reflect the positive nature and the professional nature of how people go about their work. We are not perfect, believe me. We know how to get out of our lane. I'm telling you, I know all about that. And the counselors do as well. But we are learning, and we are trying to look at each situation as it presents itself so that we can do a good job. I think that communication between the council and the staff, the council and the public, the staff and the public is really outstanding. And we don't have to agree with every member of the public, and they don't have to agree with us, but we must be respectful. And I think that your report certainly reflects that respect, without using that word, is strong throughout everything that we do here in Lincoln. So thank you very, very much for your observations.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Pleasure.
Very much. All right, Council. We'll move on then to.
We have a motion, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I'm just moving down there. There are no further questions of the presenters, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Mikulik and seconded by Councillor Vincina. The council receive and file as information the following presentation. Janice Atwood-Petkovsky and Jeffrey Abrams, Principals Integrity, regarding the Integrator Commissioner's annual report. Madam Clerk, could you please call out the vote?
Thank you, Councillor Bernay,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yes.
thanks, Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Support.
that carries.
Councilors, we're at item 11, the motion to receive and file council information package. And item 11.1 is correspondence from the CAO, the town of Lincoln, addressing input from the city of Welland regarding the transit governance consultation. And I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you might have on this matter. And Mr. CAO is available to answer those questions. So, are there any questions?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor. Oh, no, we have two.
All right, thank you, Councillor Mikulik.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. Through you to our CAO, Welland had indicated some concerns about the costing, the proposed costing, the financial model, the dates, pre-COVID, post-COVID, some confusion that way. So I did a little bit of research on this, and back in January 2017, the region consolidated. They came out with a report, Niagara Transit Service Delivery and Governance Strategy, 16-3664. And in that report, there's a table with net operating costs, what they anticipated net operating costs. We'll be receiving a report as council with answering some of these questions. Would it be possible to see how close was the region with their estimated costs back in 2017 with their projections? Would it be possible to investigate that, just to make us feel better that their estimated costs are going to be actual or closer to actual and not go way over budget, or we didn't anticipate, or it's just about track records with regards to financial projections.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely, Councillor Mikulik. I'll work with both Terry and Lawrence as we bring the report forward in the new year and see if we can include in that report some of the questions you have this evening in terms of what happened in 2017 and the track record, I think, as you characterized it. I mean, one of the comments I would make is that there's probably a number of variables that went into play. And so cognizant of that, you'll also see me make comments about transit as a service and the subsidized nature of it. But I'll save those comments for that point in that report. But duly noted, Councillor Mikulik, we can include some of that comparative data.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And I'll move on to Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions, probably through to the CAO. Just wondering, Mr. CAO, I appreciate the comments from the City of Welland and especially on the ridership. As I'm reading this, I'm really questioning. It's great that we're getting this from the City of Welland. I'm wondering if the information is actually factual. So I'm wondering, through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO, around the CAO table, around the mayor's table, in discussions, like, is this a reflection of the City of Welland and their council and their mayor? Or is this a CAO basically, putting in his comments? I guess that would be my first question.
Mr. CAO, do you have any light that you can shed on this?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I do. So, Councillor, I think probably the best way to answer it, I would say it's a combination. It is a staff written report, but it was unanimously supported and endorsed by Mayor and Council in Welland. And I think to your point, relative to the CAO table, I think there's considerable differences of opinion, definitely with the CAO of Welland and some of the other CAOs. I would say the majority, in terms of how some of the mathematical calculations in terms of what's owed to Welland or what Welland is asserting is owed to Welland, and how that's being calculated. So definitely some difference of opinion, but the position that you see within this document does reflect an endorsed position of staff from Welland Council and Welland's mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO. So kind of piggybacking on Councillor Mikulik's comments, when I look at page 52 of the report, it talks about our comments that came from our meetings back in September. And it talks about the fact that, we have a concern as a council with regards to the representative value to the taxpayer. We highlighted that. We brought it to the region's concerns to be thought through a thought process. We also talked about future service enhancements, how long-term growth and service levels would be determined, and what long-term growth assumptions were included in the financial model. Those are all things as a council we brought up to Mr. Robinson and the regional representatives at some of our meetings. So I'm wondering, Mr. CAO, we all understand, and I think socially and economically we support transit, but we also know it comes as a cost. And, as we prepare for a meeting in early January, and as we see other municipalities voting, how are we going to look at this lens through the taxpayer lens, that we're making sure that costs are being appropriately looked at, as based on those information right on page 52 that this council has already brought forth to the region, because we haven't had an opportunity to be in front of that regional people again until January. So I'm hoping I'm articulating this in the right fashion. We've expressed what our concerns are from a taxpayer's perspective. When are we going to get this information before we make that vote? And actually, to the point, it might be a moot point, because they might already have their majority before we even get the vote. So through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO.
All right, Councillor Brunet, what you're asking is not part of the intention of the staff report per se. However, because the representation will be, Mr. CAO, could I just check with you? Are we talking about early, mid, or late January? I'd like to know how much runway we have before the report to council, our internal report, will come to council.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to all of council. We are coming back on January 24th at the committee of the whole meeting at that particular point in time, or council meeting that evening, where we'll have this conversation. The staff report will probably be available a week before. There will also be a report and delegation from the region on this particular topic. So, I would say for all intents and purposes, we've probably got the better part of the next 3 weeks. Councillor Brunet is correct. Comments have been incorporated by the region in terms of what Lincoln's concerns were. But I think we can and include in our staff report some of the concerns and comments that were raised. I did send council a brief update late last week relative to some financial inquiries that members of council posed. But I think Councillor Brunet hit it. There's a social piece to this and there's an economic piece to it. And I think when you look at it, and his question was around what lens do we apply to it, I think it's both lenses. Transit is a service like many other services. Waste management, you'll see in the report, is compared as a relative service and how that's levied. And we have numerous other services. I think it is no surprise to anyone, and not necessarily this council or anyone else, that it will require a level of subsidization. Transit services, even the most successful transit services in this province, are subsidized anywhere from 40 to 50%. So it is subsidized, no different again than libraries, ice rinks, and a number of other things we do. So there is a cost, and there likely will be an increasing cost from the perspective of the regional levy. Now, that is not to say that there isn't one taxpayer, and I think we've always expressed that concern from our perspective. Staff will also report back on some of the other comments and questions that council's had throughout the process. But to Councillor Brunet's, I think, question around the levy, around those increasing costs, we're going to do our best to highlight what some of those are. Some of them will absolutely be based on service and service levels. If, like any service, and whether that be ULink or the other models we looked at where they used an Uber-style model, the more successful the model becomes, the more successful the service becomes, the more enhanced the subsidy becomes. And we saw that when we looked at previous models and other models, the more the costs increase. So it is a service that a number of businesses and residents have come to rely on, but there absolutely is an associated economic cost to it. And then we will try, I think also in that report, to at least from a qualitative perspective, identify the socioeconomic challenges that I think a lot of residents have and where transit fits in that void.
So, Councillor Brunet, does that provide you with enough information about when the information will be available, when it will be available to review and to prepare for the meeting on the 24th, as well as the availability of full discussion on the 24th?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate the CEO's comments, and I appreciate you giving me the latitude to ride that fine line between what we're discussing this evening in this report and what we will be discussing in future meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll move on now to Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a point of clarity through you to the CAO. So Mike, I believe there was an email that went out with some update of results, and this is specific to Welland. And in that email, it was mentioned that Welland did not support the regional transit. Now, listening to one of the other municipalities' Zoom calls, the question of Welland's vote came up, and Matt Robinson's response to that was that they did support, but had some additional asks, if you will, that when pushed, Matt Robinson made the comment that he didn't see any real issues there, that they would be resolved. So I'm just wondering, what is Welland's position as far as the vote is concerned?
Are you able to answer that question, Mr. CAO?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. So Welland's official position is a no vote as it relates specifically to where they sit on a triple majority and garnering the support for a triple majority. However, you're right, councillor, and I think CAO Zorbas has always said around the table, he doesn't think we're that far apart as a collective. There are some interpretation issues in terms of what are the base operating costs that they're using. How do we quantify Welland's capital costs, and how does that get rolled into the way the calculations are done, and something we call a Cummings principle, again, which is around the ownership of assets. Composition on the committee as well has been an issue for Welland. And I think if increased composition was garnered, a lot of these other issues go away. So some of those aren't necessarily issues with transit as a whole. And so I think the comment that Welland is supportive of regionalized transit probably remains whole. And I've heard that around the CAO table. And I suspect Regional Councillor Foster and Easton would attest that Mayor Campion has made the same comments probably around the regional table. I think, the devil's in the details, and that's where some of the issues are. And so I think, is there a way to bring Welland on side? Yes. Welland isn't saying they oppose things indefinitely because they don't support transit. They're saying they oppose it right now, and we should wait another year to do these calculations in 2023.
So just to follow up, if I may, Madam Mayor, so it's obviously it's very critical to clearly identify where is Welland standing on this. They hold, a pretty big stick in this thing with the number of people that they have or that they represent in their town to get to the city to get to the triple majority. So it sounds like I need to go back and review that municipal Zoom call to hear exactly what Mr. Robinson said, because he certainly led me to believe that Welland was supportive and was giving that particular municipality direction that Welland was supportive or supported the vote. It wasn't a question of coming back later and redoing it. It was that night they were supportive. So I guess I got a little homework to do to go back and see exactly what he did say that night. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just add to Councillor McPherson's comments. Right now, as it's tallied up, we have 5 municipalities in favor, 1 against. So Welland's official position is as one that is against regionalized transit at this particular point in time. I think it's highlighted at the beginning of the conversation. We have Port Colborne and Niagara on the Lake coming today and tomorrow, respectively. Niagara on the Lake this evening, Port Colborne tomorrow evening. With those two, we reach what is the one element of the so-called triple majority in terms of 7 municipalities needing to vote in favor. So we would have had 8 municipalities vote in total, with 4 coming in the new year, 7 in favor, 1 against, and then Pelham, ourselves, West Lincoln, and Waynfleet all in the new year.
Is that complete for you, Councillor McPherson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes.
Thank you. I see Deputy Mayor Russell. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really quickly, it does line up with some of the conversation tonight. When I look at the ridership that was provided in the Welland report, I'm wondering if it is possible as a takeaway for our CAO prior to our next meeting, if he can get from Mr. Robinson the number of unique riders or users that the town of Lincoln currently has. I know that a good proportion of the users are based on mobile and through the website. So again, they should be easily to identify through the database as opposed to those that are buying the tickets. So I'm just wondering if we can get that number to find out what our number of unique users are, and then maybe we can do a little parlay and see the value versus the cost as a takeaway.
Through you, Madam Mayor, noted. We'll include that in the report back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Any other hands, Madam Clerk?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Katrina and seconded by Councillor Reimer. The council receive and file for information the following items: Memorandum from the CAO addressing input from the City of Welland Transit Governance Consultation. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Miklik,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
That carries.
Councillors, we're now considering item 12.1 and 12.2 of the recommendations from standing committees. We'll consider item 12.1, Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of December the 6th, 2021. Are there any questions regarding these minutes? And the second item, 12.2, Committee of the Whole Minutes of December 15th, 2021. Any questions to these minutes? I have a motion moved by Councillor Rajima and seconded by Councillor Brunei that Council approve the following recommendations from Standing Committee, Committee of the Whole Workshop Minutes of December 6th, 2021, Committee of the Whole Minutes of December 15th, 2021. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Thank you, Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Miklik,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
and Mayor Easton.
Support.
And that carries.
Just give me 1 second here. We're moving on now to the report of municipal officers, and we're considering item 14.1, 2022 Ontario Regulation 28409, Compliance Report FN 2121. Do any members have questions on this report?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
All right, Mr. Kirkopoulos, do you have any comments to make?
Through you, Madam Mayor, on the compliance report, I do not. I'll be making some comments on the COVID-19 update year-end report.
Thank you very much. I have a motion. No hands. All right. I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson and seconded by Councillor Russell. That Council receive and file for information report FN 2121 regarding the 2022 Ontario Regulation 284/09 compliance report and adopt the compliance report for expenses excluded from the 2022 budget as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 284/09 passed under the Municipal Act 2001. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
Thank you, Councillor Brunei,
Yes.
Councillor Patriva,
Yes.
Councillor Miklik,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that carries.
We're now considering item 14.2, the COVID-19 2021 year in review, AD 3121. Councillor CEO Kirkopoulos is available to answer any questions.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just make some opening comments, and both Kathy McGrath and I are here to answer any questions council may have. But I thought it important as we, I think, end what is almost the second full year of a pandemic to give council a little bit of an update. I won't go through each of the pages there. It is a 7-page report. We've summarized each month what's transpired and where we find ourselves. But I do want to, I think, highlight just a few things. And that really is that our EOC team for the better part of the last 22 months has continued to meet almost on a weekly basis. And I would say in the early part of the pandemic and as waves came, meeting 3 to 4 to 5 times a week to really address what is going on, not only internally for our staff, for council, but for the community at large. We've done everything from implement staff vaccination policies to communicating with the public, to specifically targeting our business community and facilitating how we support them and how we can make them more successful during very, I think, unpredictable times, to working with our community services team, as well as public health and others to keep things rolling. I think a testament to what has been happening is this weekend, where our staff and really led by Kathy and Kathy's efforts, together with our communications folks, really took a lead in reaching out to the province and setting up these GoVax buses, really filling a void across Niagara. And I think by the amount of people that showed up over the last 3 days, and that I suspect will continue to show up as we have more of these GoVax pop-up clinics, really filling a void. So I know both Councillor Foster and Mayor Easton may speak to specifically what Niagara Region Public Health does, and they can provide a little bit of information there, as can I if it's required. But I did want to, I think, highlight what's happened here again. Both Kathy and I can answer any questions council may have, but your EOC has continued to meet, and as we head into another, I think, uncharted month with the Omicron variant and what's happening right now across Niagara and across this province, we are in for a couple of long nights, and I can tell you, I probably talked to Kathy a few dozen times over the last 48 hours. Most of her weekend was equally out in the cold, handing out those little tickets that people were complaining about in terms of how much vaccine is available. So we continue to dialogue with the province, with public health where and when possible. And we are here to answer any questions you may have specifically.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. And also, I want to recognize Kathy McGrath, who really carries a significant workload on the operations of this committee. So I recognize Councillor Regina. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to say that I think that the community is very lucky to have you being so proactive in putting these clinics together. I know there was a lot of excitement on the weekend for people to get there and get in line, and that shows really how eager people are to get these boosters, and they're very fortunate, I think, to have you working so hard on their behalf to put this together. So just to ask for more, my understanding is that you're going to be doing this again. Is there any potential schedule for that, or is it too early to ask?
Mr. CAO, or do you want me to go to Kathy, CAO?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Kathy and I have the same answer, but I'll let Kathy respond.
Okay. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Regina. We are proactively looking to schedule more clinics in Lincoln in the coming weeks. Currently, we have some confirmed in January, but we're looking to fill some gaps in December. Still working with the GoVax team to get some confirmation on dates, but definitely something that we are proactively looking to secure.
Okay, so there are some confirmed for December, that there will be some, but you don't know not December, January, but you don't know the exact dates yet?
We have every Sunday in January booked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but for now we're going to, of course, everybody wants to get their doses a lot sooner than the end of January, for example. So we're going to try to fill the gap between now and January 2nd. But our earliest one right now is January the 2nd.
Okay, so, okay, good to know, and looking forward to seeing if you're able to book ones earlier on. Thank you.
Yes,
thank you,
that's
Madam.
the plan. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, Kathy, do we have a clinic later this week?
We're looking to finalize those details. I haven't received 100% confirmation yet.
Okay, I think you said that. I was just.
That's correct.
Needed it to be repeated. Is that satisfactory for you, Councillor Regina?
Yes, I appreciate that.
Okay, Councillor Timmers, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. Through to Kathy, we spoke on the weekend just to follow up on Councillor Regima's, I'm very appreciative of the work that you did. That's a long day, a long, cold couple of days there for sure. I think my question is around people with accessibility issues or health issues. Those were the people that were reaching out to me, and I had another person today as well that can't stand in the line. And I don't know, I'm just putting it out there. I don't know if there's any way that they could be accommodated. I know the doses are limited and it's first come, first serve, but I just want to put that out there. If there's any way we could accommodate people who don't want to travel far from home as well.
Kathy?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Easton, to Councillor Timmers. I am working with the GoVax team. They're very receptive to feedback, and some of the feedback that's been provided was, the unfortunate situation of our elder population in that cold. During the clinic hours, the clinic lead would accept them to come to the front of the line and sort of warm inside a bit, but also they had the opportunity to return to their vehicles and get back into the line, as the person with them has moved up. So there was some accommodations. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of space inside the facility for everyone to move in. The clinic also will administer the dose in the individual's car. So if there was a mobility issue, then they would just go into the clinic. Their assisted person would go into the clinic with them, and then the vaccinator would come out to the car and administer it in the car.
Okay, that's great to know. I was not aware of that. So they need to get in line, and perhaps someone that's with them could go ahead, go in and let you know the situation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you very much. Pass that on.
If I could add, Madam Mayor, I think one of the things Dr. Hergy said, earlier today was that, I think the region through their public health clinics, both with the one at the Penn Center and the Scotiabank Center, and some that are being, I think, slowly brought online, they are going to look to prioritize some of our more vulnerable senior populations. Question is just how quickly that can happen. And I think as soon as we know, we will make sure council and the community knows. But I think there's a recognition by all of us. Our vulnerable seniors are the ones that right now are finding it hard.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Timmers. Very helpful answer. Councillor Mikulik, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Easton, through you to our CAO and Kathy McGrath. Thank you for everything you're doing. We're still in this pandemic. The question I have is, has there been any discussion as to when or what the parameters are? What are the metrics that tell us that we are not any longer in a state of emergency as a municipality or as a region? And I asked that question because, I was with friends of mine and they said, well, they wanted to communicate with public health, but they were closed. And, they seem to be operating under general business hours and being in a state of emergency with this pandemic. I'm just curious, are we learning to live with this, or what are the metrics or the parameters for us to lift the state of emergency?
Mr. CAO?
So I'll look to Kathy to maybe start that question. I mean, she's I think more familiar with the metric side of it. I can probably provide some contextual anecdotal comments, as I know that question's come up around the CAO table as well.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
Through you, Mayor Easton, to Councillor Mikulik. This is a question that we've raised with our CMC group, which is our Community Emergency Management Group. With public health as the lead of the emergency, we really are looking to them for guidance and direction on, what those metrics would be as far as when we would consider terminating the declared emergency. Because it is such a fluid situation forever, it seems like it's continually evolving and things are changing. With most recently the Omicron variant and the fact that it's spreading quite rapidly, it really is consuming a lot of extra resources and redeployment at the regional level with public health, and has also put some strain on municipal operations. And I think with this Omicron being so widely spread, there is that threat that we may have people who become sick or who may have to isolate. So it still kind of continues to be an emergency situation. As far as the exact metrics, those numbers are not shared because I think they're still learning from this virus, or we're still trying to figure out where it is going to go. So we haven't been provided with any definitive metrics in which we can look towards and say, you know, we're getting close. We're about to exit this. And especially with the province putting further restrictions on capacity limits and social gatherings and things like that. I just don't think we're going to get those numbers in the near future.
Appreciate it.
If I could, Madam Mayor, I mean, I think, Kathy probably nailed most of it. If you'd asked me this question probably 3 weeks ago, Councillor, or last month at our council meeting, I probably would have had a different answer for you. But I think, what Omicron's done and this new variant has done is really rewrite the timetable. So I think, when we find ourselves on the other end of this, that's really, I think, when we'll have a better idea. To your point about the hours of operations and how to get in touch with people, I think that's something we can take back. I think it goes to that customer service piece, and sometimes people want information. So I think, how that information gets communicated and relayed will be important moving forward. But I wish I could tell you that, by the 2-year anniversary of this pandemic, we'll be on the downturn. That's my hope. I think how severe this gets really is going to be based on how our system reacts. And are we able to curb, I think, some of the hospitalizations that we're seeing to start creeping up? Because really this is a system issue. And the shutdowns that we've had, the lockdowns we've had have really been put in place to protect the system, and that system being our healthcare system. So we continue to monitor it and watch, and hopefully in a month's time, when we're sitting in front of you at a council meeting on January 24th, we've got better news.
Appreciate those responses through you to our CEO and Kathy McGrath. I just asked these questions because I don't know if it's, cases. Okay, yes, there's lots of cases. There's also lots of testing. Is it deaths? Is it hospitalizations? Myself, I'm hearing all sorts of news from all sorts of sources, and I'm going to start thinking positively through this and stop looking at the doom and gloom of things, and that's what I'm going to start doing, moving forward. And yes, there's lots of Omicron cases, but I'm just hoping that it's not as bad as everyone, is hoping that it's not. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Benjamin, you still have your hand up. Do you have another question? No? Okay, thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, I don't see any other hands up.
I do not, Madam Mayor.
All right. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet and seconded by Councillor McPherson that Council receive and file for information report AD-31-21 regarding COVID-19 2021 year in review as presented by CEO Mike Kokopoulos and Kathy McGrath. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Brunet?
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva?
Yes.
Councillor Miklick?
Yes.
Councillor McPherson?
Yes.
Councillor Russell?
Yes.
Councillor Rajima?
Yes.
Councillor Reimer?
Yes.
Councillor Timmers?
Yes.
Mayor Easton?
Support.
Carries.
Thank you very much. We're now at item 14.3, which is the mayor's report. And I would say, councillors and members of the public, that once again, we find ourselves at the last scheduled meeting of the year. Although this year, and I think it's the first time that I've ever made this comment, and I suppose we could say it is, as always, we're available if necessary and as needed because of the current situation with the Omicron variant. We do recall the challenges, and we have had some conversation this evening, but there have also been great opportunities, many challenges that have been overcome, great success for many as the main recovery from the COVID Delta variant has been experienced. The unfortunate matter of it is that we're moving on now to another greater challenge, and one that is coming up on us pretty quickly when you look at the numbers. And the future at the moment presents additional concerns. The large case numbers that have been identified from the medical officer of health, Dr. Hergy, as he outlined the risky model, or the model that identifies the greatest risk that we have seen so far. And the numbers are continuing to double each day. I always hope, and I think, I certainly share the hope that all of us have, that the sacrifices and measures that we're all taking are going to curb the spread. But it looks like we're going to have to hang on for a little bit longer. At the present time, many non-public health agencies are offering scheduled clinics all over the province. And our local public health are seeking ideal larger locations all over the region to offer clinics. We heard tonight about the Penn Center and the Scotiabank Center. Here in Lincoln, of course, we know that the GoVax clinic at the Lincoln Center was, it is a bit of a double-edged sword. About 700 shots were administered. Not, the weather wasn't cooperating with it. So a bit challenging for those who braved those days to come out. And so I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the frustration and waiting outside. It was a real challenge for people, but it looks like there's some hope coming up. And I'm pleased to hear that those with physical limitations will be handled, as I'm sure everyone who has special needs. Those who were unable to get to the shot Saturday returned for yesterday's clinic, and they were seen first. The crowd that gathered were also given numbers up to the point that the vaccines were available, and that was a very positive move, because then there was no question of whether you were going to be included or not. It was much better, and I thank Kathy for braving the weather herself and going out and being that ambassador with the crowd. And I've heard from those who suggest that both washrooms and possibly even a food truck would also help with the wait. So while the idea of a pop-up clinic sounds speedy and responsive, when things take a long time, there are other needs that have to be met as well. I'm very pleased that our town staff proactively organized the availability of space, and although the clinic itself is operated by the province, we now know that there are many tasks needed to support and communicate to those waiting in line. Is it enough? No, it's not. Much more must be done. And my hope is that the region and Niagara Health System, together with the province, continue to work to provide more vaccinations and to do so quickly. Whatever large clinics will be available across Niagara, they need to happen soon and continue on throughout January and February and beyond. On the basis that it takes 6 weeks to vaccinate 500,000 people, we intend to stay on top of whatever facilities can be made available to support West Niagara communities. Some of the barriers to getting on track include the logistics of sizable locations and qualified staff. We can all find smaller locations, but it eats up the few staff that are available. Keep in mind, healthcare staff have been at this for a long time without much relief. We understand there will be no delay with the vaccine supply across the province, and we need to vaccinate thousands per day to get to the end. Lincoln staff has organized one more clinic this week with the support of Red Cross and other providers through the GoVax team, and will continue up to the end of January. And that's the current plan. We heard more specifics from Kathy about that tonight. I want to recognize as well the incredible effort and response that is being offered by our local pharmacies and family doctors, who are also available to administer to their registered patients. And of course, the larger centers are always an option. And of course, because of our position, people are also going into the Hamilton and Burlington areas. In the meantime, while you're waiting, please be aware that your best line of defense is the additional public health guidelines that were announced on December 17th. And by preparing ahead with knowledge of additional restrictions, keeping the safety of friends and family in mind, we should be able to safely wait until it is our turn. Along with others, I received my booster this morning. My left arm's a little bit sore, but otherwise I expect to be great by tomorrow. It's been another busy, unprecedented, and remarkable year. And so I'd like to move on beyond the COVID, to speak very briefly about 2021 and how resilient our community has been. People have been caring, have been helpful, have been responsible, and adhering to advice on their personal safety. As you know by now, our budget is set at 2.68 for 2022, well below inflation. The priorities for 21 involve some very serious deliberations on the condition of our infrastructure and our assets. These are all laid out in the fall-winter newsletter. And 2022 will bring more opportunities to discuss planning applications. As we have been learning, it's not about saying no, but having conversations with all of you to achieve desirable results in your neighborhoods, and also to meet provincial policy and to achieve the desired outcomes that we can. I want to thank everyone who is entering the conversation on all sides of the issue, and for the work that is being done through Speak Up Lincoln to ensure that you get the most accurate and timely information. We'll be continuing with the prudence discussion, the Vineland Master Plan, as well as the urban plan for Ontario Street visiting, and to share and promote openness and understanding and participation throughout. 2022 will bring a significant focus on climate adaptation, as well as the work that we will be planning for along the waterfront. I remind you of the winter safety and the bylaw, the parking bylaw that was recently approved. It's also included in page 5 on the newsletter that went out. This is no longer something that is going to happen by goodwill alone. There's now something that we are referring to as the Keep It Clear program. It's no longer voluntary. We've now launched a Snow Squad campaign to educate the community on the amended parking bylaw. I wouldn't like to see anyone negatively impacted, and therefore I ask that you update yourselves. I'm going to turn to the CAO very briefly, just in the event that he had anything at all that he would add regarding what is happening each day. It changes somewhat in regard to the COVID issues. I want to thank you all in the community who have been patient, who have been kind. What you're going through is not in any way easy. As leaders and also as members of the community, we are setting examples for our children and grandchildren in terms of how we deal with unprecedented events in our lives. Thank you very much. Mr. CAO, I turn to you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I did have some kind of end of year comments that I did want to make, but why doesn't Councillor Foster go first, and then I can make those after he speaks as our next municipal officer.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Foster, would you like to present your report this evening?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. And Just a couple of things, because this was a pretty wide-ranging discussion that you guys have had here at council this evening, and I'm always very interested in, particularly on how things affect back into the region. So I'm very pleased that you allow me to be here and occasionally ask the odd question. So I do appreciate that. I want to start. Chair Bradley sent out an email to all staff on December the 17th within Niagara region, talking about the current crisis, I guess, if you want to refer to this now, variant, et cetera, that's going on. And of course, one of the things that everybody has to be aware of is that, you know, the region of Niagara has huge effect on a wide variety of things that are important to the public good within Niagara region. And what happens with the gearing up for vaccination clinics, et cetera, is that there's redeployment of staff all over the place. So, and that happens to be one of the things that's going on at this time. But I just wanted to give you a quote from Chair Bradley's comments. As he says, "I believe it is important to be extremely clear here. These vaccines are saving lives. The science is clear that these vaccines are making a massive difference in our fight against COVID-19. And it's quite true. Dr. Hergy, the other day in our, we have a update twice a month with him on where things are at with public health. And he was very clear. He still believes that those that have not had vaccinations up to this particular point in time really need to, and I'm going to paraphrase because he didn't say this, but they need to get with the program and get their vaccinations out of the way. And we need that to move us along on where we need to be as a society. And I just wanted to make a quick comment on the transit issue. And I just, some of the questions back through to Mr. Kokopoulos were quite interesting. I love his line transit as a service that he said to you guys earlier. That's when I'm actually going to maybe trademark Mr. CAO, because it actually is bang on. And you guys are going to have to understand actually the town of Lincoln and their commentary back in and through on this issue did lead to significant changes on the way things were being looked at. And I can tell you is that, you know, from a service point of view, from how this is being governed, et cetera, it certainly has become, in my opinion anyway, much better for the town of Lincoln. So I look forward to hearing your guys' discussions as this goes on. And I would suggest that you can look at Welland, but Welland has a whole series of other issues that have come into play that we're aware of at Niagara region. So I wouldn't take that as the gospel case on what's happening within the whole transit file. We have budget. We approved our budget. Yay. We ended up at 2.87%. It approximates to $46 over the average household across Niagara region. Now coming in at the 2.87, there's a wide variety of things that have come into play with this. First of all, it's an increase of expenditures of 23 million. What we did though is we utilized 6 million out of the reserves in order to reduce the amount. As you guys know, and you know, most of us have been council members together for a long time. I'm not a fan of what it is that's going on when we go and use reserves in certain ways. And I'm a believer that if you're going to use reserves, you use them for one-time costs that are coming into play. But the thing is with this is that there was general consensus that we did have to lower where we were at this year. And there is a surplus that's expected coming in from to the region coming out of the end of this year. And so it made an awful lot of sense. Now, it certainly didn't satisfy everyone on our council, if you've read any of the information since. I'm always one of these ones that believes that if everybody is a little bit unhappy as it goes on, then it must be a good compromise that's come into place for what it is that's happening. Just to give you some highlights, some key investments. There's $20.2 million is being spent in some key investments, and that includes $2.3 million to bridge housing and permanent supportive housing. $4.7 million to support infrastructure for regional departments and agencies, boards, and commissions. 0.8% towards tax increment grants and Smarter Niagara incentives programs. And 1.9 million contributions towards local hospitals and hospice development, which of course Lincoln has been a leader in those areas, but the region has come along thanks to a variety of people doing the leadership there. Significant amount of money going towards Niagara Police Services. That's one all of you need to keep your eyes on for years to come. That one seems to be a budget that continues to spiral year after year, and I'm not really sure where that's all going to land. The other thing is that we are supporting a $327.9 million capital budget program coming into next year, and that includes the South Niagara Falls wastewater treatment plant. Fairly significant discussions have gone on in that area, and so that is moving forward. The total project in the end there will be over $400 million. Montrose Road in Niagara Falls, that one came as a bit of a surprise to both Mayor Easton and I. There's $31 million being spent with that. That affected other projects right across Niagara when that decision was made. And we have, of course, expressed our views and had further discussions with the region on a couple of the capital projects that we have. Big one for us, DQ Water Treatment Plant 3 has sustainability upgrades that are going into play, important for parts of our town. And again, the roads resurfacing, et cetera, are coming into play. And there's a big project in Grimsby, the Casablanca Boulevard widening is going to be going into play over there. So some pretty significant amounts of monies that are being spent. I just wanted to briefly talk, because it seems to be getting into the news a little bit, is the regional council vacancy that's going on at the region. And just to let you guys know, there's, again, it's like anything else. There's a bit of disinformation that's going on in that particular area. The region of Niagara, Sandra and I, or Mary Easton, I'm sorry, I should refer to you as Mary Easton. We have absolutely nothing to do with the decision being made on a councillor coming in from St. Catharines. And there seems to be a lot of discussion going around about, you know, the region of Niagara, you know, having commentary on these things. This has absolutely nothing to do with us. It'd be the same thing if for whatever reason I were to decide I wanted to either quit or go on. You guys have every right as a council to fill that position any way that you want, period. So, and that is based on the Municipal Act. So anyway, I just am finding some of the commentary that's going on out in the community with that one quite interesting. So, and with that, Mayor Easton, I'm going to give my Merry Christmas wish. I want to thank this council for all of the good work that you guys do. You are a beacon within Niagara. I got to tell you that, you know, and I think your Integrity Commissioner report that you saw earlier this evening is a testament to both the way that you guys do things as well as the quality of things that are going on within our municipality. And so with that, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'll look now to see if there are any hands being raised, any questions. I see Councillor Mikulik. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Through you to Regional Councillor Foster, thank you for coming and making these reports and allowing us to ask you questions that may or may be a surprise to you. But One thing I'm curious about, driving by, wow, that Niagara 2022 Games park, sports park, it's starting to take shape and it's looking pretty spectacular. How did that play into the budget? How are we doing? How did the region do with regards to that project and with its budget deliberation?
That's an excellent question, Mike. I appreciate that one. So decisions were made back as early as 2017 on how the costs for the building of those, the building of that, and also a building at Henley as well. There's a new facility going into place there. There's a tremendous amount of federal and provincial money that's coming into play. There's to some degree sponsorship money that's coming into play with it as well. The region laid out a plan over the course of it's approximately 6 years to go and do taxation in and towards that. So those monies were set a while ago within that. So the problem with the Canada Games, and well, I guess it's not really a problem, but if there's cost overruns, Niagara Region is the one that's responsible for it. By the way, that's a standard condition of any community that's going and putting the Canada Games in place within their community. So the local municipal government that's leading the charge must agree that if there's cost issues that are going on, they will be the ones that are going to be picking up any differences. So we're monitoring it very closely at Niagara Region. There has been some increases in the cost to the Canada Games Park. We had a report came in 2020 early, and we had one approximately 3 months ago again, and some of the costs did go up, but the expectation out of staff is that it's now hit the high water mark within it, and we're good to go. So that actual building at Councillor Mikulik is going to be opened sometime within the next couple months, and I'm looking forward actually to getting all of this council down for a tour when it's all said and done. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that response. I asked those questions. I asked that question because we're this deep into it, like as a municipality / region. I'm curious, there's still lots more procurement to do, lots more organizational things to do that may or may not come in or on budget. So just so that it is on my thoughts. Anyway, thank you.
Yes. Sorry to Councillor Mikulik through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's the one good thing about the about the town of Lincoln out of this one. I mean, some of the significant costs came into play for the city of Thorold. Some of them came in for St. Catharines, and then other pieces came in at the region. And the amount that we actually are spending across the region based on population, all that type of thing, really is somewhat insignificant compared to some of the other contributions that have come into play. But you can be absolutely assured we are monitoring this very carefully and very closely.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mikulik. Councillor Brunei.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Regional Councillor Foster. Rob, you mentioned in your discussion, you mentioned about reserves, and you also mentioned the word surplus. And that's not the first time that I've heard the word surplus used over the last 3 or 4 weeks coming out of budget. I'm wondering, without getting too deep into the weeds, I'm just wondering, during the discussions of the budget process at the region, what were the discussions surrounding surplus, and where does that money go, and is it COVID money coming from the province in a large part? I'm wondering if you could just give some clarity on the surplus.
Excellent question, and through you, Madam Mayor. We'll take a step back with this. There was a budget surplus came into the year 2021 at Niagara Region, and it was approximately in the $50 million range. It was actually just slightly less than that. But what had happened is it had been laid out where we were at, and the province delivered COVID money towards the tail end of the year. We had actually a significant amount of money come into Niagara Region right at the tail end of the year, which made the monies look a little bit larger than what they actually should have been looking like. A lot of that money was accounted for through this year and was used in towards programs. And it's actually been subsequently is going into programs in 2022 as well. In our discussions at the region on budget, we actually, and it's unfortunate that we're seeing what's happening with COVID again, but the reality is that we said, okay, like if this pandemic is not over, we need to make sure that we do have the resources available to go and make sure that programs and these areas are able to be funded, because we can't necessarily believe that the province may come through with more money. I expect they might, but who knows? I mean, that's the provincial government will have to decide that. So we also are expecting coming through from this past year, $11 million coming back as a surplus over through operations. An awful lot has come into play because staff positions have not been filled. An awful lot of it has come into play with certain programs are not being run that we might normally have been running, type of thing as well. And again, a lot of this revolves in and around the COVID crisis. So, but to give you an idea, and I know Town of Lincoln does a very, very good job of ensuring that they have reserves available and appropriate within the town. The amount of money that we should have in reserve, and essentially its operational reserve, should be somewhere between about $65 and $80 million. We have been running at Niagara Region with a surplus, or the operational reserve has been somewhere between about 15 million when I first got onto council, and then it's ranged up a little bit. But again, that number bounces back and forth, particularly given the programs that are coming into play. So we have an underfunded operational reserve that remains. But again, those monies are used for quote unquote emergency purposes, and council made the decision that it's appropriate to be using that this year to help mitigate some of the taxation values going back to the citizens. So I hope I answered your question, Councillor Bray.
Yeah, that's great. It just brings up, questions in one's mind. You brought up about Montrose Road and how you kind of got blindsided by that. And then we look at projects that we had anticipated would be flowing in 2022, and then we're told in the 11th hour that they're canceled. So, when you hear these words about reserves, it just starts to, to bring one's questions into mind. So I do appreciate that, Councillor Foster, and all the best of the holiday season, you and your family.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet, and thank you very much, Councillor Foster.
Great. Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you. I have a motion. No, I don't have a motion. I have a CAO Krikopoulos who's going to make some end of year comments. Go ahead, CAO.
So through you, Mary Easton, and to members of council, and in all seriousness, I will try to keep my comments brief. I know we've had a long evening, but I did want to, I think, highlight that this evening does mark our last council meeting of 2021, and each year I do a little bit of an update. And I think while this year started out with a lot of uncertainty due to the pandemic, within 8 to 10 months, we really found ourselves, as did millions of other Ontarians across this province and fellow Lincoln citizens, vaccinated against COVID-19, something that really we weren't talking about a year ago at this particular point in time. So we're ending on somewhat of a high note, and I only say somewhat because the last week or so we've been dealing with a new variant, fresh public health restrictions, and it's causing a lot of consternation among residents and definitely businesses throughout our community. And a number of us have heard from those businesses a lot today, but I would say over the last couple of days. And so while I think extreme caution, as we highlighted earlier, needs to be taken to protect ourselves, we can take pride, and I think that goes for all of us and what the town has accomplished throughout 2021. We've executed all of our work plans. We continue to deliver service to residents of our community. We opened a park, and albeit I'm biased, I think we are the envy of municipalities, and one that is very well received by our residents. We've launched a tourism strategy. We're in the final stages of a new tourism brand, Niagara Benchlands. And again, I highlight some of this to talk about what happens post-pandemic and that kind of tourism economy that really is going to help us with economic recovery and growth. We are a community, as I said, that is sought after, and we've seen new investment that's bearing fruit. Outdoor travel, industrial park on Bartlett that we just had the groundbreaking for, and we're seeing more and more private sector investment into our community. A lot of people are moving to our town. A lot of people are looking both within the region and outside the region to make Lincoln home. We've seen growth, and that's resulted in benefit. It's resulted in some challenges with change and how people deal with that, but I would say it's also resulted in additional benefit. And some of that comes with the announcement of the new elementary school that we're going to see come to our community that a number of us were at last week. Our leadership on the budget, and you heard that mentioned a little bit, is reflective just of where we're at right now. So 2 years in a row, well beneath inflation. It's a budget that is dollar conscious, but does invest in high quality programs and services for our residents. And I would say services that our residents have come to expect. It invests in infrastructure and it invests in the people services that we need. I'll take a moment just to highlight that staff continue to work to deliver services on behalf of the community. Earlier, we acknowledged our museum team, and our museum does look spectacular. Another project that I will say is the envy of a lot of municipalities. There is a lot of strain on communities. It's gratifying, I think, in a lot of ways to see people take it upon themselves to serve those on the front lines and those in our community that are in deep need of assistance. Over the last couple of weeks, we've supported a number of local charities. We've supported a number of local families. And I think at this time of Christmas, this time of the holiday season, the time of giving, it's a testament and amongst everything else going on that we do that. So the pandemic remains with us. There is the economic uncertainty that we all face, social conflict, I think, that we're seeing. This is going to test all businesses. It's going to test municipalities. It's going to test organizations. But it is ours to shape over the next number of months. As I said, I hope I'm in front of you giving you better news at the end of January when we meet as a council again. But on behalf of the staff, it's been a pleasure to be your CAO. So happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. All comments very generous and welcome by council. I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Mikulik that council receive and file as information the following: Mayor's report to the public, Regional Council update to council, CAO Kirkopoulos year-end comments. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yes.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Russell,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support.
And that carries.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Councillors, there are no confidential items for this evening. And we have one bylaw for consideration today. This is bylaw 2021-100-Z566, bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 93-14Z1 as amended of the town of Lincoln. Are there any questions?
Seeing none, Madam Mayor.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva and seconded by Councillor Brunet that leave be given to approve the following bylaw: 2021-100-Z566, bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 93-14-Z1 as amended of the town of Lincoln. Specifically 4629 Bartlett Road. Madam Clerk, would you call it the vote?
Counselor Brunei,
Yes.
Counselor Pachariva,
Yes.
Counselor Miklick,
Yes.
Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Rajima,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
carries.
Next item is a motion to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. We will now confirm the proceedings. I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Timmers that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2021-101, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of special council at its meeting held Monday, December the 20th, 2021, being read a first, second, and third time. That bylaw number 2021-101 be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Thank you, Counselor Brunei,
Yes.
Counselor Pachariva,
Yes.
Counselor Miklick,
Yes.
Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Rajima,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
that carries.
And the next item on the agenda is, before we adjourn, is to ask members if they have any comments. I can't imagine that the year end coming as it is, that there wouldn't be comments. So I open the floor. There being none, I think you all have something else that you would be liking to do, but I want to thank all of you for your attendance at council meetings and for your loyalty to your role as counselors. It has been very gratifying to see everyone work very well together, and because of that, your dedication and loyalty to the community does not go unnoticed. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Adam Russell for being the deputy mayor until the end of the year. He has a couple of days, a few more days to go, but I want to thank you all for the good work that you have done when you have been in that role. And we'll start again. Madam Clerk, who we start with in January?
Counselor McPherson was next up on the list.
All right. All right, then. Anybody else have any second thoughts? I'm moving on now. Thank you all very much. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and also to members of the community, however you spend the holidays, however you celebrate, all the best and good health to everyone. Councillor Timmers, you're coming up front and center, so I'm thinking that you must have your hand up, but I just can't see it.
No.
No? All right.
No, Mary Easton, I don't.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone. I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunei, seconded by Councillor Reimer, that the special council meeting on December 20th, 2021 be adjourned at 20:29 hours. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Counselor Brunei,
Yes.
Counselor Pachariva,
Yes.
Counselor Miklick,
Yes.
Counselor McPherson,
Yes.
Counselor Russell,
Yes.
Counselor Rajima,
Yes.
Counselor Reimer,
Yes.
Counselor Timmers,
Yes.
and Mayor Easton.
Thank you, everyone. This concludes the special council meeting for the town of Lincoln. And thank you for joining us. A reminder to stay safe, be cautious. Thanks, everyone.